Welcome to Better Business Building, where I'm your host, Adam Mandarovich, where I talk to business leaders from all shapes of life about what's worked for them and how they can help you win. Hey, thanks so much for coming on today, Patrick. Tell me a little bit more about what you do.
So what do we do? So Linehan Group is a performance management consultancy, and it was born out of the fact that I myself am a career sales director. So I have been doing sales, like many salespeople from the beginning of my career, door-to-door sales when I was, double glazing sales when I was 16, on the phone with a phone book, like many people who started out that way, realizing they could get paid to talk. That was an easy way for me to make money as a kid. And then I started doing door-to-door sales. I always say, if you can do door-to-door sales and do well in door-to-door sales, you'll probably not have a challenge in sales as hard as that ever again. So I always like to hire and work with people who've done that. It's the baptism of fire of sales. And then I got into more sophisticated types of sales, advertising sales, consulting sales, solar energy sales, real estate sales. And I've done that in a lot of different cultures, a lot of different countries. As I was a sales leader for a huge part of my career, I started to see what leaders were doing well, what leaders were doing badly, where the blame was being placed in failing performance, and seeing that it's never where people said that it was. And people were very much avoiding the fact that culture is the main issue, leadership being a part of that, and probably the most important part of that. And in my career, which spans 20 years, I have seen, I believe, some of the best leaders in the world performing at peak, and I have seen some of the worst leaders in the world, maybe not the worst leaders in the world, but some of the worst leaders in business, coming up with excuses, dodging reality, and slowly dying as a company or being bought out in an emergency situation. And I became fascinated with the human side of that. And sales is about people, it's about relationships, it's about trust, it's about psychology. So when you're selling to someone, when you're pitching to someone, if you're emotionally intelligent, if you have empathy, if you have enthusiasm, if you have those natural traits that are attractive and likable, but you also know what you're talking about, you can be quite successful in sales with the right amount of activity. But it's similar in culture, for a leader. If you're lacking the emotional intelligence and the empathy to sell a dream, to sell a vision, to get buy-in from your staff, from heads of departments, it's a similar thing. You'll fail in that sales process. And in the way that you lose clients, you lose staff, or you lose hearts and minds. So it's all about influence, and that's where my company, Linehan Group, started. I actually had a breaking point where I had a CEO when I was a sales director who, for the first time in my life, was a year younger than me. I think that was a factor. The old ego, Patrick, keep it in check. But it was probably the tipping point of a number of frustrations that I can help companies with the problem that continues to frustrate me. And I was really lucky in that I'd worked for some great companies who said to me, if you ever go out on your own, let us know, we'd love you as a consultant. I even, and I'm really proud of this, have some guys who I hired, trained, and taught sales to in China who started their own company 10 years before I did, are very successful, and said the same thing. You taught me, when you start your own thing, please get in touch and help my team. So when I did start, I had a bit of a soft landing where I called all those people and say, hey, remember when you said if I started my own thing, you'd want to work with me? Well, congratulations, I've started my own thing. And I swept up a few clients that way and built it from there. At the beginning, like many startups, I was figuring out what I will do, how I will package it, really taking anything I could add value to at the beginning. Roll the movie forward years later, and you polish your go-to-market strategy. You apply all of the training that you teach salespeople to your own business. You apply all the sales enablement recommendations you make to people to your own business. It's one of the great things about selling sales or selling performance is you end up being on the front end, the cutting edge of what's working well, and you just bring it in-house, what's working well, and you're able to then testify and say, how do I know this is great? Well, we use it ourselves, you know? So we've been on a journey of doing things like sales coaching, sales training, leadership training, packaged usually in terms of hours and retainers. But then we got to a point as we got more partners into Linehan Group and the team got a little bit bigger, we started to realize that what we needed to do was do an audit of a company as our first step. So we created the Linehan Group performance audit, where we go into a company and, you know, between 14 hours or 28 hours, depending on the type of company, the size of company, simply go in and with our own methodology that we've created to expose the truth. Yeah. Almost like one of these psychometric tests for individuals where, you know, you don't know what the result's going to be because you're not sure why the questions being asked are being asked. There's a little bit of that, but also some of it's very straightforward and very obvious of why we're asking that. And then we give a score out of 120, and depending on where you fall in that score, we rank you on a level of sophistication of performance against the most sophisticated performing companies that we've worked with, mostly startups. And the reason why we move towards startups is two reasons. One, they are under significant pressure to get it right first time. I mean, we do work with some companies that have gone downhill or plateaued and need to fix things, but sometimes funding can be a challenge there. You know, they're struggling financially, they're struggling culturally, whereas a startup is getting ready to have their first swing at the bat. And if you can tell them the pain, the cost, the challenges they can avoid by setting up their sales team right, by setting up their tech stack right, by creating the training and onboarding sales performance modules correctly, then the amount that it costs to do the audit and get the report and recommendations versus the cost of miscalibrating all of the tech, hiring all of the wrong people, having the wrong leader in place. I don't want to swear on your podcast, but undoing that, I guess you know what I was going to say, but undoing that costs millions of dollars to companies. So it's a smart investment to work with people that, you know, we always say that the best way to find your way up a mountain is to ask a person who goes up and down it every day. You know, old Chinese proverb, but it's very, very, very true. You know, success leaves clues, and there are mistakes that are easily avoided. There are pitfalls that are easily avoided. And there are nuances to things like hiring and attracting and keeping talent. So, as I said, from a company that started off just doing sales training, sales coaching, pitch creation, we evolved into a consulting agency that sometimes just does the report and the audit and walk away and let a company do their own recommendations. But usually, and this is the psychology of doing it on an audit basis, if you've been working with the managing director, the CEO, the sales director, talked to the frontline salespeople, and you've won the hearts and minds, and they all, as one voice, say, "Wow, we love working with these guys. My life is immediately better before they've even done the recommendations because the quick suggestions that I'm able to apply immediately to my daily work and the things we're able to change." When you get to the report recommendation presentation and you say, here are the things we suggest and we can help with, most companies will say, please help us with that, because we've already told you to some degree all of our dirty laundry. So we don't want to have to go through that process with somebody else, particularly if they trust you. So that's really what we do, and we do that industry agnostic across, you know, multiple industries. We do that across, you know, we have clients in Sydney, in Geneva, in China, in Mexico. I'm based in Valencia in Spain. We're a UK registered company, so we're very global, and yeah, we really love helping companies, and we love companies, you know, saying, you know, based on the work you did with us, here's the revenue increase in 1 year. And also one final point to say, change management is a huge part of what we do. And we use a framework of taking people from unaware to aware, to understand, to believe, to act. And this is really a core framework of everything that we do. And we also teach that in sales. When you're selling, you've got to take people through that journey, and we even use the language internally of where would you say that client is? And we don't want people to say, oh, the call went really well. Oh, I have a good feeling about this, as salespeople do. We say, where are they? Are they at understand? Yeah, they're at understand. How do you know they're at understand? Did they explain to you exactly what you do, how you do it, how it benefits them, the cost? Did they explain it back to you better than you explained it to them? No, they didn't do that. Okay, then they don't understand. So there's nowhere they're at believe. They're not telling other people about it. They're not ready to act. And we train sales teams on those frameworks and tools that we've all as a team picked up over the years. As I said, the big win for us is having people say, we avoided a lot of pain and we grew our business because of the work that we did with you. And one final point is, as you know, technology is changing so fast. Applications, the competitive landscape around sales enablement, cloud telephony, sequencing, you name it. Like, I'll talk to a big sequencing company, I'll mention a new big sequencing company, and they'll go, I haven't heard of them, because they're just like popping up everywhere. Same thing with CRM tools. And then there's the big ones that are trying to acquire those and consolidate them. It's like this ecosystem that's moving around really, really quickly. And one of the big dangers for startups is miscalibrating that and getting that wrong. And we use this frame, the Goldilocks zone, right? I love this phrase. It's, not too hot, not too cold. Most people know the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. I always joke that NASA used this term when they're talking about space in a place that life can survive. They call it at NASA the Goldilocks zone, right? It's like Earth is in a Goldilocks zone, right? And we say with tech stack correlation, our tech stack, what's the word I'm looking for? Tech stack optimization, we'll say, you basically can get it so wrong in so many ways that things don't synchronize well, things don't buddy up well, things don't talk to each other well. And there's an infinite number of ways to spend money as a startup and get that wrong. And there's a few ways to get it exactly right for your business at the moment that it's at. So we partner with companies like Pipedrive, like Chili Piper, companies that we know are super reliable. There's obviously competitors of those companies that are great as well, but I mention it because a part of our model is we recommend and refer companies that we have affiliate agreements with. And then, of course, if one of our recommendations to a company turns into a license for 20 people, then we get paid on that as an affiliate. So that's another revenue stream of what we do. And it's been a surprisingly important part of our growth. And again, it's important for us because that means we got to keep an eye on the market of what could be better than something we're recommending right now. So yeah, that's a high level of what we do, how we do it, and who we do it for. I hope there was some good stuff in there.
Yeah. Mate, that's probably the best explanation that I've ever heard. But before I don't need to ask the second question that I normally ask because you've already answered it. But let's unpack one section of what you said there.
Sure.
So with the audit and the psychometric, are you talking about against the customer's journey with the internal stakeholders, or what's the measure for that? Because I can see there'd be a few different variations of how that could still be true. So I'd be interested in your answer on that.
So in terms of the methodology of the audit, we break it into categories and we score the subcategories out of 5. So, for example, if a company doesn't have a CRM system, and I know you're going to say, but Patrick, surely every company has a CRM system. Not true, right? But if they obviously don't have that, they're going to get a 0 out of 5 on the how well are they using their current CRM system, right? So it's very measurable, it's very scientific. 0 out of 5 in that area goes towards the out of 30 of that greater section. So whether it's around, it's 4 key areas of performance, but what I would say is we see most companies come in under 80 out of 120. And we've had companies come in, and I'm not kidding, at 12 out of 120. And on stuff that can be compared to and scored out of 5. Communication is a huge part of that, like communication channels, performance monitoring and tracking, innovation, satisfaction of employees, all of those things. You know, it's a combination of anything to do with performance and people leadership, I would say are the key areas. So I hope that answers the question. I'm not sure if it does. The client is Adam. Adam is, you know, I'm going to look at you, I'm going to guess 33 years old, right?
I like this guy. Keep it going.
Adam is 33 years old. Adam is head of sales for a global company that specifically solves this problem for those people. So it's really I want to know Adam inside and out. I want to know what he has for breakfast. I want to know what his hopes, his dreams, his fears are. And you know, I'll mention a company here. There's a company we work with called White Rabbit Intel, and they do stuff that's really, really cool in AI in terms of not just, you know, saying this is the title, this is the industry, but this is the social media activity, this is the persuasion personality wise of this person, and this is how he's similar to someone who bought before in terms of that personality. He's in the top % likely to buy, you know. This lasered focused energy at the people who are most likely to buy now is so important, and there's so many tools like White Rabbit, or maybe White Rabbit's one of the best, I think, for doing this, that can hyper target, they call it. But you know, that's on the sophisticated end. On the rudimentary end, you can walk into a lot of companies, and again, this is related to culture, this is related to leadership. The number one person that people are looking for inspiration and enthusiasm and guidance and belief and motivation and clarity, they're being given vague guidance and vague messaging. And if you give vague targeting messaging of who we do something for, why and how from the top, it actually gets diluted anyway. So if it starts off weak and not targeted, by the time it gets to the bottom, basically when you get to the bottom of that, everyone is looking for a new job. That's how bad that the outcome of that can be. So, you know, getting clear on the internal messaging, you know, we promote something called constant coaching culture. And constant coaching culture is every conversation is a coaching conversation. Internally, you know, every conversation that you have is, you know, imagine this was a client conversation, or how could we have said that better? Or is there a more positive way to ask that question? It's like this constant wheel of continuous improvement. And what that does is it almost keeps the standard across the company up. You're only as good as your weakest communicator. And we often say that, you know, salespeople are, it's not that they're bad at sales. They haven't even got to be good at sales or bad at sales yet. They're bad at communicating. So you can't master sales until you master communication. So a lot of what we do with leaders is help them with communication, help them with language, help them with attitude, help them with prioritizing messaging. Because the internal messaging really should almost be identical to the external messaging. Because you almost want people to be having a conversation constantly that they're excited about, they're proud of, they believe in. They're like, wow, what we do is really cool. And that feeling to just turn around and talk to someone and go, I was just in a meeting and we were talking about this and how we solved this problem for those guys. And people can feel that authenticity of believing in what you do. And that cultural elixir, that holy grail of getting that right, is the difference between success and failure with a startup. And then startups sometimes don't fail and they'll blame one person, or they'll blame the one piece of technology, but it always, in our experience, comes back to the leadership, the energy, the culture, and the communication.
Wow, Patrick, that is honestly some of the best answers that I've heard towards some of those questions ever.
Because we love it and we believe it. And a lot of it, you know, and the truth is a lot of this stuff, like any great creativity has come out of pain. You know, this is born out of pain. It is born out of, you know, like the greatest music in the world has come from the saddest place. You know, we really think the best cultural transformation training and consulting has come from suffering of the worst cultures in the world. It's like, this has to stop. We must protect people from this at all costs, you know.
I was actually saying to Rob Turley today, tell me a time in history where growth and innovation came from a static state. Oh, wait.
Right. For sure. For sure. Momentum.
But it sounds like you're building like a machine of culture, high learning, that you're literally going to have people that are so good at what they do that if for any reason they don't want to work there, you could literally pick up the phone and go, where do you want to work? Let's get you there. Okay, sure. You want to go there now? I'll get you there now. Let's go. And
100%. And at that point, you know, we've started to do a little recruiting and headhunting simply because of what you just said. That was never a part of our business. We used to recommend a recruiter in the UK and a recruiter in China, and we would do a few favors. But then those favors started to be favors that were asked almost every time. So we said, all right, we need to charge for this. And we just did a standard 30% of the first year contract and things like that for someone we introduced. I just think the people element of it all is so important. We're spread quite thin between now and the end of July in terms of projects, which we're so happy about. And we have a plan once those key projects have been delivered, that we will start concentrating on what you said, which is taking some of this stuff more to the masses, and rather than just being into a company, across a company and working as a consultant. But actually we've got a sub-brand of Linehan Group called Element Mastery. And you know, we've done the basic things of acquiring elementmastery.com and started working on the brand colors and the mission and the values of the sub-brand. And the purpose of that Element Mastery is to create courses, live courses like this with 10 people, courses that are pre-recorded, but on 3 subjects: leadership, sales leadership, and sales. And of course, in terms of all of the overarching key elements of communication, they're all in every single one, but in a digestible format for the relevant ideal buyer of that course. And you know, there is a possibility, of course, for someone to graduate from one level to the next over the course of their career, but I'm getting way ahead of my business plan on that one. But because we've just been told by so many people, you know, not just me, but some of the other partners in the business who do what we do, you know, you got to get this out there more. And you mentioned to the point of the personal branding, doing the videos, doing the podcasts, and for sure for Linehan Group and for me personally, to do more of that towards the end of this year and into the years following, is certainly a goal to get more of this stuff out there and to help more people and to solve more of those problems.
So given all the weight of everything you've said and how powerful all that is, Patrick, who do you think you can help the most?
So in recent years, we've had most success with startups, as I said. You know, we started off being almost an ambulance for companies that were in an emergency situation. And obviously you can really be the hero there. It's easier to get in front of a problem. Prevention than cure is what we've learned in terms of the struggle, the energy, the time commitment, etc. Prevention is better than cure. So we've gone from having mostly a cure-based model to a prevention-based model. But that's not to say we still don't help companies, that we don't help companies that put their hand up and say, we have plateaued, you know, because of COVID, we've really struggled, we've had to let go a bunch of people, we're restructuring the sales team. We've got a new investor to save us, but they're saving us on the basis that we work with someone like you to get those key areas of performance right, in terms of tech stack optimization, in terms of the right people in the right seats, in terms of the messaging, the training of our people that are going to the market, how to say the right thing to the right people at the right time. More importantly, the questions to ask to our potential clients to expose the need and open the opportunity. So it's going into a company that has investment, has a clear value proposition that the market needs, and wants to calibrate, which is the word I couldn't find earlier that has come back to me, calibrate their performance, go-to-market setup in a way that everything connects from the beginning, that there isn't the growing pains associated with the human element and the tech element, and basically making sure that the people side of the business and the tech side of the business, the sales, the operations, the marketing and the sales are all synchronized and connected in a way that as the engine starts to turn, velocity of revenue is predictable, and the painful repetition of the word predictable revenue. I always say I was using that before it was cool, but now it's everywhere. Predictable revenue.
Yeah.
You know, because if you look at almost any business in the world, what people will buy or want to buy is the ability to see into the future, right? It's like order and chaos. If you can take away chaos and bring order, you have a business, right? And people will always say that's what they do, you know, because that's what sells. But it's how do you really do that? How can you really, when you break it down, predict the outcomes? What is the methodology? What is the science? What is the evidence of that ability to predict? Because of course, when you're talking to a person who's looking for this kind of help, and you say, we're able to tell your investors, or we're able to put you in a position to tell your investors in your next investor meeting, here is the worst case scenario based on this, on the way we are. Here is the likely scenario, and here is the stretch target, right? And we will be able to work with you to make sure it's one of the top two. Without a doubt. And if you can give the person the confidence that they're going to sit in front of the people that gave them $10 billion or $15 million or $50 million or $3 million or $500,000 and say, hey, remember when we spoke last month, I told you this is what was going to happen? That's exactly what happened. Here's what we did. Here is the outcome of that. And for our next meeting in a month or in 2 weeks or whatever, or in 2 months, whatever, a quarter, this is what we'll be talking about. This is what we will have achieved. And then to come to that meeting and say, remember when we talked, these were the things that we said we were going to nail. This is where we said the revenue would be. This is where we said the hiring would be. This is where we said the operation setup and the tech stack would be. They're all done. The value of that to someone is like, it's not just about, you know, that's predictability, but it's also sleep at night, right? Like owners of companies who've got big investors, they're under incredible emotional stress and anxiety, and the ability to remove someone's pain is why people will spend money.
Wow, Patrick. So if people have loved what you said, how do they best get in touch with you?
So the best way to get in touch with me is either through a LinkedIn direct message or through P. Linehan at lenehangroup.com, or you can go on our website. We have a client success portal where you can drop a message and an inquiry and the team will pick it up.
Awesome, mate. Thanks so much for your time.
Pleasure.
Thanks for listening. If you, like me, have received great value from my guest, please like, share and follow. See you next time.